what is our approach? What do we bring to relationships to make them flourish? What do we do to raise the capacity of people to become self-sufficient?
Hello, lovely folks, and welcome back to Panacea9 by Gloria Y. I am your host, Gloria Y, and today we have an amazing woman joining us for this episode. Monette Van Lith is a trained life coach, but most importantly, her 25 years of experience in South and North America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. While these experiences being both in the corporate sector as well as the nonprofit sector, of course, empower her with the ability and the insight to understand people on a deeper level. Prior to her coaching practices, her experiences ranged anywhere from working in a medical equipment company in Romania to a nonprofit organization in Israel, UNICEF and the WHO in New York, and the United Nations in Sudan. We are thrilled to have you with us, Monette. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gloria. I really appreciate the invitation to come on your show. And it's so nice to see you after so many years. And I love this idea of a podcast with conversations with people from around the world.
It's really nice to see you. And I'm amazed at what you've done since I last saw you in Israel. The places you've gone, the kind of activities you have involved in intrigue me, and we would like to hear more about it. So let's start with the fact that your career has taken you across many continents and cultures. How have these diverse experiences shaped your understanding of cultural differences? And how do they align with unity and inclusivity?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a really good one that begs some thought and some reflection. You know, sometimes even the word differences to me sets us up to think that there is something that is maybe not desirable. So sometimes I'm thinking about when we consider the diversity of cultures around the globe as a richness, as a treasure, as a wealth that belongs to humanity. And so then suddenly every single experience becomes something to treasure and to cherish because it helps you to understand humanity at a deeper level. You know, when I was a kid, my parents decided to move us from Holland, from the Netherlands, to South America. And we moved to a country called Suriname. And it's probably one of the most diverse countries on the planet because the different populations that are part of that country create this really rich tapestry of languages and cultures and backgrounds and representation of different diverse peoples. So that was for me already early on such a gift, I think, that our parents gave us to help us learn about another country and learn about another reality, and then also to live in it. And we went to school and we really became part of the country. And that was an experience that I think shaped me at a very deep level early on.
That's wonderful. I loved how you started by saying and reflecting on the word differences. I use it a lot. But as soon as you mentioned and as soon as you said what you said about differences, I said, oh my God, she's so right. I personally need to be reminded of not speaking so much about differences, but like you said, the privilege of diversity. Having covered that question, let's move on to the next question. What are some of the most transformative experiences or lessons you learned from your time working with UNICEF and WHO?
I started out working for the United Nations in New York New York City, in the office of the World Health Organization. They're at the level of the headquarters in New York City. The UN really functions as, in many ways, as a point for, at least it was a field in which I was working, which was coordination of humanitarian affairs around the globe. So, for example, every week there were meetings where all the different UN agencies and stakeholders would come together and consult and talk and so on about all the different hotspots around the world. And so I was representing the World Health Organization at those kinds of meetings. And so, often this was the higher level conversations where the headquarters would kind of consider what's happening around the world and can we share with each other, that what we're seeing and learning of what's happening on the ground, we shared that in these kind of meetings, so that the coordination of all the different activities that all the different agencies are doing would be harmonized and aligned and coordinated. So, for example, you have the World Food Program, which helps to deliver food. You have UNICEF that deals with issues of supporting women and children. You have World Health Organization that is addressing matters of health and disease and epidemics and so on. And so each agency and many others would come to these meetings and would facilitate the kind of coordination that could then take place on the ground. And so later on, I was then also living in Africa, and I was working with another UN agency in Sudan. But again, it was about coordinating the affairs, planning together, and then coordinating the affairs of all the different agencies that were doing different things. And so, if you coordinate the work together, you can get so much more done and you can avoid overlap. So you're constantly talking with each other and making sure that there is a collaboration that is happening among the agencies.
You mentioned hotspots. What does that mean? What is a hotspot?
Yes, usually when you think of humanitarian affairs, you have two types of crises. One is, let's say, natural disasters or that are caused by natural causes. So it could be a flood, could be a drought. And then the other type of humanitarian crises is man-made. So those would be wars and conflict.
By hotspots, you mean you would identify the areas that are in a greater need. Is that why you went to Sudan?
Yeah, I mean, it was those jobs that took us there.
I see. So Monette, is navigating cultural differences or cultural diversity, let's say, something you focus on in your life coaching practices? And if so, do you find embracing this diversity is a challenge or comes quite easily in your practice?
That's a great question. Part of my work is training larger groups, like workshop style training. And the other way I work as well is one-on-one with coaching just one individual through a period of time. And so a lot of my clients are working parents. And so they kind of deal with, they navigate the complexity of a life that is with a busy career and a busy family. And when you think of cultural differences, it's interesting to me that even when you have something as simple as a family, like as sort of basic as a family, you often have, most of the time, you have two parents that come from a very different background. So whether it's, whether we think of it in a bigger way, like nationally, that they're like from different countries or that they're from different racial backgrounds, even if from the outside it looks like, oh, these people are pretty similar. We all have our own childhood that has shaped us. We have had our experiences growing up that have shaped us. And so when we come together with another person and we create a family, we're going to naturally have quite a bit of differences, if you like, in the way we think about things, the way we think about the world, the way we would think about raising children, even to the smallest detail, like what time should we have dinner? One person, they may have had, in the way they grew up, dinner was always at 6:30. Whereas the other person, when they grew up, it was TV dinners, or it was basically everyone would eat at their own time because they had different schedules, for example. So you would see immediately there is a diversity there that we have to learn to navigate and to experience in a way that enriches us. We make an effort to understand each other at a deeper level. And the same happens at work. We have immediately, if we work in teams, we have colleagues that for sure we're going to be different in many, many different ways. And so I think the question is a very fundamental one, which is, what is our approach? What is our attitude? What do we bring to these different relationships to make them flourish, to make them fruitful, to make them to make them work really well, as opposed to being constrained by kind of stress and differences of opinion and so on.
That's interesting. And the way you put it, you started with how you would navigate a family situation, and then you took it to a bigger setting, such as a work situation. I guess, like a lot of other things in life, we're talking about the same fundamentals that work for smaller groups can work for larger groups. Like what can work in a family, and correct me if I'm saying something that you don't find to be right. So what we may find how to navigate a family, let's say a husband and wife who come from different backgrounds, different type of upbringings, the type of thing that works for them in that small unit, the essence of it, the principle of it would be the same with a larger unit, like let's say a corporation of 200 people, or a town of 5,000 people, or a city of 1,000,000 people.
Sometimes we have to look first at the smallest unit and see what are the workings of that smallest unit, and see how can it become a model that can then be seen at a larger scale as well. So a family, we could almost say like it's a nation in miniature. The relationships between a family are, they need to be also based on equality and compassion and understanding and many different facets of a family really also relate to the way relationships are fostered on a larger scale, or even at the level of a nation, and even at the level of the world. I mean, if we think of the world as one home and all humanity as one family, which science has proven that there is no real distinction that makes one group of people less human than another. We all
human.
know
that. Yes.
We all know that. Yeah. So we could say like the oneness of humanity is at once a reality, but it is also a goal, because we have to start to live according to that very fundamental principle, which is we are one family. And so if we think of a family where a member of the family, let's say, gets sick, or one family member is going through a difficult time, we don't then cast that person out and say like, well, you're not fitting in with us anymore, we don't want you. And no, we say, what can the family do to support this one member? We see each other as members of one family, we take care of each other. So if it can be done at the scale of a family, then you could imagine that you could scale that up and say, well, that can also be at the level of a nation.
Absolutely. I like that, because I've always believed that in order to realize real progress and development, we need to work from grassroots up and go to the smallest unit, fix it, go to the bigger unit. And then, like you said, come up with I don't know, you didn't use the word formula, you use maybe a template of what might work for a bigger demographic. That's wonderful. My next question takes me to the fact that you've worked with both corporations as well as nonprofit sector in society. So working in these two different sectors, what are the most significant barriers you have observed to fostering inclusivity within the working spaces? How can they, and if there are any barriers, how can they be addressed?
Yeah, I think in the end, it starts with what's the mission of whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit, like what is in the mission statement of the organization or the company that will already set a certain tone and will already be an indication as to whether diversity is encouraged and even actively pursued, or whether it is sort of written inside the mission statement that the pursuit of this particular enterprise is a purely material or financial one. So it can be different depending one enterprise or one organization to another. The ethics of a company can still include to spread, let's say, material wealth more widely, as opposed to thinking like it's only for this company. And a nonprofit organization, even if it is not pursuing financial gain, it can still pursue a healthy structure so that it becomes self-sustaining, as opposed to thinking like we need always to have resources to come in that we then distribute. The whole idea, for example, of distributing resources amongst people is very important. But then also, what do we do to raise the capacity of people to become self-sufficient? Because you want to already have inside of your mission could be already this idea of raising capacity within the population that you're trying to serve.
Right. Well, raising capacity certainly should be in the forefront of every humanitarian project, because it's one thing to provide resources to a community or an individual or a group, but it's another thing for it to be sustainable. Because once they use those resources, then what? Going back to the gist of my question, though, do I understand that you are feeling that even in corporations where they are for profit, that they are actually applying ethical standards and accepting diversity and helping communities, even if the communities are not their own immediate community? If that's the case, that's wonderful. I think we're growing as humans or as society, and we're moving towards a better understanding of the oneness of humankind. Monette, this conversation is getting exciting, and I have more questions to ask you, but we've promised our viewers that we keep the episodes not too long. So if you don't mind sticking around, we'll say goodbye for this part, and then we'll come back and record the next part of the podcast. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me and for giving me this opportunity to talk with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. So thank you for staying with us for this episode. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Even if it's something that you want improved, we don't mind. We just like an engagement, a dialogue, and we are trying to grow the channels. Be well wherever you are. Be good, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye. From scattered fragments to global unity, healing our world together.